Hey, has it begun? Are we actually live now? Is it starting? Fantastic. I'm sitting here waiting for the thing, and usually we have like a whole intro sequence, but I guess we just fucking don't now. So we're just standing here looking like a-holes. Played a sound in my ear, and I've got nothing here. Screw it. Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi, all of the people watching me stand here like an ass, staring off in the distance, trying to figure out call-in studio. How are you? My name's Forrest, and I'm a professional. I'm a person who gets paid to do things like this, and I'm so glad that you're here to take notes on how I run things. Welcome to the Hang Up with not Matt Dillahunty this week. Shannon and I are filling in, and so I hope you're ready for like a rip-roaring good time with two people who love to start arguments and discuss really sensitive and controversial topics. How are you today, Shannon?
I had to mute myself because I was like, is he gonna say anything?
Yeah, no,
Hang
explain.
on. I add myself so that the audience can hear me for once. Let me explain. Matt likes a view where he can see the super chats blown up and the guest. And so he's got that window. So you couldn't see when this happened, apparently.
I was sitting here staring at the screen, just like, all right, someday it'll do that. And until then, we're just here, just chatting. Well, great. Well, that's fantastic. What a wonderful intro. What a wonderful show. I hope that when Matt watches this later, he's happy and confident in the fact that he let us do this week. So this week, we'll just jump right in because we're here now. This week, as is usually the tradition, we talk about some sort of a hang-up, some sort of thing that we've got on our minds that we wanted to discuss. And this week, I asked that we talk about the concept of the phrase, Jesus loves you, because this is something that I get told a lot. Whenever I talk about science, whenever I talk about atheism, whenever I teach evolution, a very common comment that I get in any comment thread is that Jesus loves me. And I see this not only on my channel, but on lots of other channels as well. When you look at, any random thing on the internet, you're going to find comments like this, especially if it's somebody who's LGBT, or if it's a scientist, or if it's somebody who isn't going to fit into the traditional hypodime of what a Christian is supposed to look like. And personally, I think this is a horrible and hideous thing to say to somebody. And I understand that more often than not, I'm going to take this out because of the echo in my ears driving me insane. I understand that when you are a Christian and you're saying this to somebody, you almost certainly think that this is a very kind and very sweet and very loving thing to say to somebody, that you're inviting them to be a part of the happiness that you feel, that you are wishing them well and giving them love. What's wrong with telling someone that they're loved, right? But what I hope that any religious person watching this understands, and what I hope that even atheists watching this will start to think about, is the foundation of what this religion is, and the main focus of the message. Remember, Jesus died for our sins so that we can go to heaven. Well, what's the alternative to that? It's hell. The foundation, the core of this religion, is the idea that hell is a necessary thing, that all of us are born in sin, that we are all so fundamentally broken, so evil from the moment of birth, that the best thing in the universe, the plan of the final arbiter of all that is good, is to have us tortured for all eternity in a lake of fire. Conscious pain forever is the only thing that not only we deserve, but that is just and righteous for us. So when you tell someone that Jesus loves them, especially when there's someone who doesn't believe in this, especially when there's someone who is gay or lesbian or trans, especially when there's someone who is teaching science, you're telling them, hey, you're a piece of shit. You're awful. You're disgusting. You're the worst thing that could have possibly happened to this universe. And it is only right that you be tortured for all eternity for the crime of being born. But hey, it's not that bad because you're loved. And not only is this a horrible insult and really just genuinely a dehumanizing and awful thing to say to somebody, but also it's a sick mockery of the concept of love. If I told you that I love my wife so much that if I thought she didn't love me back, I would tie her up in my basement and set her on fire, you are less likely to start a religion about that and more likely to put me on that TV show You with a creepy, crazy stalker that'll murder you if you don't love him back, because that's fucking nuts, yo. So I don't think that this is a very kind or loving thing to say to somebody. I think this is an awful, painful, cruel, dehumanizing thing to say to somebody. And it's difficult to tell that to people who've been told that this is one of the kindest, most loving, most welcome thing that you can possibly say to someone. Because remember, the foundation, the core, the fundamental part of this religion is the idea that this sick and twisted love is the only thing that can save them from themselves. So that's my hang up for this week. I think that you do not need a sadistic and abusive relationship to be a whole and well-rounded and worthy person. I think that you, no matter who you are not evil, are not wicked, are not broken, are not disgusting, are not terrible. I think that you deserve love just for who you are. And I don't think that love comes with a price tag or with a caveat, like, this phrase likes to pretend that it does. What a fun way to start the show. Shannon, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I echo some of the things that you just said. Like, I think when I hear it, especially in most contents, it comes with this caveat of condescension and judgment, usually when by the person who's saying it to you. It's almost like saying, Jesus loves you anyway. Like I've
Right.
determined that you're reprobate. There's something about you that's distasteful or disdainful, but you should be grateful because this being that I believe loves anybody anyway, loves you anyway, even though I'm entering into judgment against you. And it's kind of like a passive aggressive way of preventing people from being able to defend themselves because you're acting as though or set up appropriate boundaries because you're what's the word I'm looking for? You're kind of using love as a weapon in that instance. You're redefining what it means in an unhealthy manner, in a situation where a person might be saying, that's not what love looks like to me. And you're saying, well, I've defined what love looks like. And it looks like me judging you and saying that you just need to be grateful that I'm even willing to have this interaction. And that perpetuates abuse cycles. More people, like Christianity's done a really good job of just, co-opting the definition of love almost entirely. And it looks an awful lot like abuse and judgment and in a lot of situations. And they teach people that and then wonder why people have trauma and are damaged.
It seems like it's both a sword and a shield. Like it's offensive and defensive, because not only, like you said, is it a sort of passive aggressive way to say, I guess I'll deal with you, even though you're so disgusting or so right. But also, if you come back at it like, hey, I don't fucking want this. Don't talk to me that way. Don't do it. Well, it's just love. That's all it is. Yeah. It's just love and generosity. How could you be mad at me? You're the jerk here for telling me that I'm the bad person. You know what I mean? It's offensive and defensive, and either way, it's it's disingenuous and rude. And I find that most of the time, when I talk about that around Christians, the answer I get back is, well, Jesus loves you. Like I said, it's just this automatic thing. And what I hope people, religious people watching this understand is that, like, you're doing your religion a disservice. If your goal is to save souls, to bring me into the fold, like, this is the worst possible way to do it. And if all you have is this kind of messaging of love and forgiveness and tolerance and friendship and the generous offer of an eternity in paradise and all these things, it's doing the opposite of what you think it is. You've got to find new material, because, like, really, you are pushing me farther away every single time. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Yeah, God's love looks a lot like, hey, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do.
Exactly.
Like, you didn't appreciate me enough. Like, that's part of abuse cycles, right? Like, I love you so much that I'm so frustrated with your behavior that now I need to punish you to make you acceptable to me. Look what you made me do. This is on you. All of the pain that I'm
Precisely.
putting through, look what you made me do. But you're taught that that's the perfect form of love. You're taught that that is the pinnacle of what love is supposed to be.
Yep.
And it's unhealthy and dangerous if that's the model that you're looking at as the best case scenario.
It is kind of weird how I can talk about, you can rattle off the all too common phrases like, he hurts me because he loves me.
Right.
He's just testing me. He's, I needed to be corrected. I'm nothing without him. I'm stupid and he's smart. I'm weak and he's strong. Everything that I was just saying, I was talking about an abusive partner. If you heard it as I'm talking about God, that's part of the problem, is because you can take that either way, and that really is the way that it's shaped. It reminds me of that silly meme of Jesus knocking on the door, is let me in so I can save you. What are you saving me from? Of what I'm going to do if you don't let me in.
Yes.
That's a mob boss. That's not healthy. Anyway, with all that out of the way, we've been rambling now for 10 minutes and 3 minutes of me staring at the screen like a goon.
And knowing you and I, we could probably do that for the rest of the hour and a half. So we should probably move on.
We're going to jump over to the phones. We've already got a few callers on the line. If you would like to talk about religion or science or any other weird thing that you think would be a fun challenge for Shannon and I, feel free to call the phone number, which is in the bottom corner of the screen opposite of me. It's right there underneath Shannon's mic. Give that a ring and talk to us. We would love to hear from you. We would love to be able to discuss whatever's on your mind. There's also a web link, but lines are full, I'm told. So that's fantastic. But we'll just start with this guy right here. There's one open line right now is what I'm hearing. I'm not sure if the audience is hearing that, but that's what I'm hearing in my ear hole. Excellent. Perfect. So we've got a couple of really great ones here. And look at that. I've got a rainbow screen.
Color line time. Beep boop.
There we go. So we've got, let's see here. Oh my goodness, we've got 3 good ones. I'm going to start with this one right on top. This is Clarence from Ohio. Pronouns are he, him. He's an atheist who wants to talk about the psychology of atheism. Clarence, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Excellent.
me okay?
So what do you have to talk to us about? I can hear you just fine, my friend.
Oh.
What do you want to talk to us about? What's the psychology of atheism? What do you have in mind?
Shannon and Forrest as hosts and Clarence as the first caller. What could be better than that? Jesus must really love us.
Jesus.
Right.
Yes, so
anyway,
it's a sign.
I've spoken to you both in the past about various things, and I kind of have a synthesis today of what I've talked to both of you about. It all kind of came together in my head when I saw that you were both hosting. And it kind of starts out with something that Shannon said recently in a speech that she gave at a conference about angry atheists. And you were saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying something about how people who are kind of new to atheism, especially former theists, are, real angry about their situation. And as you get, kind of mature into it, sometimes that kind of goes away. And you were kind of speaking of yourself as someone who had kind of matured away from that a bit. Is that a fair representation?
From being constantly angry. I think that instead of just constantly engaging in anger too, I was talking more so about just like general demeanor. I still get angry at things that I think are unjust, but I'm better at justifying my anger and tempering it now than I have been in the past. That's absolutely the fact. Yeah. But I'm not I'm not all zen all the time.
An idea that I wanted to run by you is that I am leading into this whole thing that I put together. I am not a former theist.
Okay.
And so I was never deconverted, and so I never went through that, that deconversion process and that rebellion and that trauma that goes along with it. And so I kind of, in a way, have a different perspective. I almost view you in a similar way that you view what you refer to as angry atheists. Does that make sense?
Oh, you me specifically me?
Well, I mean, people at the stage that you say you're at. So not specifically you, but not just you.
And what would you describe that stage as, just so that I'm understanding what your point is correctly?
For example, you were saying that the difference between you and the angry atheists is that you're not, I guess the degree of anger, maybe? Is that
the
fair?
form of engagement as well, too. Like, I'm not going around to everybody who's a theist going, being religious is a mental illness and sky daddy and, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no,
I'm trying to temper my engagements better.
Sure. And as someone who never went through, who was never a theist, I see even people that have tempered their anger as you have as being surprisingly angry compared to like somebody like me, because the people that the vast majority of the atheists that I know personally are people that are either not former theists or they never went through any intense kind of deconversion. And so I'm kind of more, a lot of people, our atheism never comes up. In the form of day-to-day conversation.
So are you talking, I want to ask a clarifying question because I'm still trying to get to where you perceive me as, or people who are like me at the same phase, I suppose, as angry?
Yeah. Let me come at it from a different angle. Maybe this will make it clearer.
Okay.
There's and this gets into the psychology of it. This is where I wanted to get into the psychology of it. There's a saying, I don't know where it came from originally, but it goes something like this. There's no zealot quite like a convert. Have you ever heard that before?
Nope, but I get the gist of it.
Oh, okay. Well, I would as someone who's into psychology, the reason for that seems kind of obvious, because when somebody's converted from one thing to another, there's a lot of kind of struggle in there, like internal struggle and external struggle. And when you're trying to pull away from something, it takes a little effort, and a little force. And so
I'm trying to find myself in any of the characterizations thus far. And I'm not sure that. Are you suggesting that I'm a bit of a zealot?
Well, again, please don't take this personally. I'm not.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I find that people in general who are former theists, because of the fact that they are rejecting that theism and trying to assert that and trying to find another place, another way of looking at things, that they can be pretty forceful about rejecting what was in their past. Just as somebody who might convert, for an example might be, I don't know if you're familiar with Jews for Jesus or not, but those are people who have essentially...
Sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar.
Well, they're basically Jews who have accepted Jesus.
Let me see if I can summarize, just because I'm still not even certain I'm understanding where we're ambling towards here. Are you suggesting that people who have previously had a religious belief and have deconverted from a religious belief, as opposed to like cradle atheists who were just born and never had a religious belief, tend to be more interested in engaging in counter-apologetics than people who were born atheists, because maybe they've come out of religion and are riling against it somehow?
Well, that's one aspect of it, yes. I think...
Because I would have a counterpoint to that, because I would say that based on I think there's a piece you're missing from the recipe, which is life experience of those people. So most of those people have suffered trauma or have witnessed trauma as a result of their experience being religious. So that may make them more attuned to, empathetic towards, and motivated to prevent that from happening to other people, and to be active and engaged in utilizing whatever social media or other platforms and opportunities they have to figure out how to utilize their new perspective to engage in that. That would be where I see myself. I'm not sure I would classify that as zealous, because it's not so much as I'm motivated by the fact that I'm not religious anymore and I'm kind of like angry about being duped, or I'm now dazzled by like my newfound intellectualism, or whatever the case may be. It's more so that I've always been the type of person that gravitates towards utilizing my energy to do whatever I can, wherever I can, to reduce harm. So that may be other people's motivation. I can only speak for myself, but yeah. Forrest?
No, I was actually going to tune in with the exact same thing and say that, like, you're talking about how there's no one quite as zealous as a convert. You have to, think about why, especially when you're talking about, someone who's converted to atheism, I guess you could say. I don't know if that's a proper way to say that, but whatever. Is, these are people who have almost certainly been through some genuine trauma, who have been told, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, that they're, broken and wicked and evil. You talk about young girls, especially, who've been taught that from a very young age that they are inherently sinful sexual objects that need to, cover up and take care not to, turn on men around them at all times. Talk to any girl who grew up in a religious household, especially evangelical Christianity, Southern Baptism, whatever. I remember listening to, I think it was Eve Was Framed on TikTok, talking about how, like, the first time she was sexualized is like not even a fucking baby. So like you come from this background of trauma, you're gonna react to it and you're gonna lash out in the other direction. Somebody who has been mugged is a lot more cautious and mindful and gonna talk a lot more about the concepts and the threats of being mugged for other people. As for me, I'm a lot like you. I wouldn't say I was an atheist my whole life, but I certainly didn't grow up in any kind of traditional Christianity or anything like that. But even so, I see the harm that it does to people. And I see the way that even the vague, weird, neo-pagan, spiritual, woo-woo, whatever I did believe when I was a kid, I see the way that twists and distorts regular mental processes. And I do rally against that. And I'm the kind of person to run towards problems. So I want to bring that energy out on public stage and to talk online like this, not because I'm an angry atheist, but because I'm very passionate about trying to help other people free themselves from what I see as mental imprisonment. So, like, that's it. I don't know if classifying us as angry or saying what stage we're at really fits. I know there are people like that. I know a lot of times, it is true when someone first becomes an atheist, there's a stereotype for a reason of them going around and banging on the doors of churches and saying, this is all bullshit. But, like, I would do the same thing if I found out that the person that I trusted the most, or the people that I trusted the most, have been lying to me and fucking with me for a long time. I would also be quite angry, Yeah,
I think there's myriad motivations for sure. Sorry, go ahead, Clarence.
I just want to make clear, I'm not berating people for that. I understand that that's part of the psychology of the whole thing. I mean, the word zealot is kind of extreme, but it's just a saying, from the past that I picked out to illustrate a point. But I certainly, part of the psychology of this whole thing is that those people have been traumatized. And
when you say, there's not ubiquitous motivation though, right? Like, there are, like Forrest and I both just said, there are some people that have probably been up for a long time. There are some people who are lifelong atheists whose motivation when it comes to engaging in this topic in a public forum is to be perceived as smart and get accolades. For example, there's people who sort of, I don't want to say get off on, but like enjoy getting a good old attaboy for making somebody else look dumb. Like, so everybody has a different sort of general disposition that may make them more inclined towards how they engage in a topic. And I am certainly not perfect. I have made my share of engagement mistakes and will make many, many more engagement mistakes. All I can do is like declare my motivation to try to be to try to consistently improve and self-reflect. But I still think that the subject matter is important, because I still day to day see the harm, not just to people individually and their identities, but also to things like education and politics. Like if we don't kind of continue to push ourselves through to the forefront as activists, like who's going to do it? Like there's there's a lot of Christians who sure would love to have a nationalistic country where you guys live, and without opposition, that's a possibility.
As someone who's not a former theist, my motivation comes more from the political. Like you were just saying, I get really pissed off by people who are trying to break down the separation between church and state. I mean, that's and the way it affects politics, and that's where my motivation comes from primarily, in terms of opposing apologetics. Whereas a former theist, at least part of their motivation comes from, in general, I mean, for most former theists, I would say, from their previous personal experience. So mine, I'm not angry about my personal experience. I'm angry about my political experience. And the way I was
personal experience feeds everything that you do. It kind of constructs your So
the way I
I'll
was going to tie this in to what to Forrest's point of view is as follows. When somebody's coming from a religion, religion is very absolute, and it's comforting to people because it's unchanging and it's absolute. And, I mean, they feel like everything's been answered. There's no vagueness about it. I mean, the rules are there, and that's comforting to people, and that there's a kind of absoluteness to it. And when people leave that and try to replace it with something else, like, for example, science, they tend to take that same need for absoluteness into their new point of view. And what I see happening sometimes is that people who replace religion with science, and this is something I've talked to Forrest about before, I don't know if you remember, but they tend to be very absolute about science, like science knows the origin of the universe. Absolutely, there's no question about it. And the thing I like about what Forrest does is you, Forrest, are constantly reminding people that science is not written in stone. It changes, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Thank you. That means a lot.
And
so I know Shannon and I have talked about that before as well. Is like when someone comes out of a theistic mindset, they have just questioned something that they have been told their whole life is unquestionable, and that makes them very prone to conspiracy theory or even to reject modern science, because as they learn about it, and they learn, like you just said, that it is changing all the time, and the whole point of it is to ask questions, that now they're on this track of, if I can ask a question, then that means that it's wrong. And if something was right, then it would be unquestionable, and I couldn't question it. But if I can question anything, then it must be a problem. And the fact is, you can question everything. And so now the government is lying, and science is lying, and everybody's lying, and the moon men are controlling whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
So and the other side of that is sometimes they adopt science so absolutely that they are in favor of science, but they're seeing it in an unrealistically absolute sense. So that can go in both directions. For sure. So anyway, that was just kind of a synthesis that I put together of things I was thinking about, both with regard to the psychology of why people become atheists, and how they bring that to the things they adopt after they come out of theism.
Cool. Most definitely. Well, it's a fun thing to think about, man. Yeah. Have an awesome rest of your day, Clarence. Thanks so much for calling in.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Keep doing what you do.
Bye, Clarence.
See you later.
Have a good day.
Bye.
That was pleasant. Well, I wanted to take Clarence first because we
the rest of them aren't going to be pleasant. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I hope that they will be. I hope that they will be.
Oh gosh.
We actually have another caller on the line that wanted to talk about the psychology of theists. So Clarence in the chat here, or in the call-in studio thing, it said what he wanted to talk about was the psychology of atheists. I have now on the line Jasmine, pronoun she, her, from Canada, who wanted to talk about the psychology of theists. Jasmine, can you hear us?
Oh, wow, that's so broad.
Jasmine, are you there? If you're not there, I am going to look like a fool, Jasmine. I was planning for this.
All that setup
thing.
Oh, Jasmine, I don't think you're
Last chance, Jasmine, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear
Jasmine,
me?
are you there? I can hear you.
Hi.
I don't know if you're on an airplane or what, but a little bit windy.
Let me try to get closer. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
We can hear you just fine, Jasmine. What do you want to talk about today?
Okay. Well, I thought that last call was very interesting, and the whole idea of anger. I certainly do have anger, but it's more of it's a flailing kind of anger. It's not
like an undirected sort of anger, like a general anger.
Yes.
Do you? So there's no specific source.
Well, it's like I said, flailing. Like it's a misdirected almost. It'll go. I'll be angry at the religion. I'll be angry at this. I'll be angry at that.
Are you in a questioning phase?
Yes.
I see it says you're theist, so you're in a questioning phase right now. Are you a Christian by any chance, Jasmine? Or what I shouldn't assume, I'm sorry.
No, I don't blame you for assuming, but yes, I used to be. I wouldn't consider myself now a Christian, but I used to be.
Okay. So are you just some sort of a general theist now?
Yeah, I believe that's a fairly close description.
You sound super familiar, Jasmine. Have we spoken before?
I'm the you don't deserve science, Jasmine.
Okay. Okay. I that sounds familiar. Yes, I remember. Yeah, you were on the Sunday show, right?
Yeah, I called you not too long ago.
That's right.
But I thought
I
combination between you and Shannon would be just so interesting. So I was tempted to call again, and so well, here I am.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to hear from you again. So you if I remember correctly, and you know, tell me if I'm wrong here, but if I remember right, you've been questioning your religion for a minute, and you deconstructed a lot of what you thought you knew about it. But when Jimmy asked you if you were still religious or if you still believed, you were kind of almost like sheepish in the way that you said, like, yeah, I do. Like you were kind of almost kind of embarrassed, like you were like, oh, yeah. And so, and it seemed to me, if I remember right, the last thing that we said was that you couldn't think of a good reason to continue believing, but you were waiting for a good reason not to, or like, and is that were you the same person there?
That's pretty close. Like I said,
cool.
Conversation prior, I don't have a good reason to believe, but I feel like I don't have a good reason not to believe either, you know? So it's right. I don't know where I sit.
So let's talk about this anger then, because I feel like those two concepts build on each other really, really well. Like when you say that you have this kind of flailing, nondescript, non-directional anger about everything, where does that stem from particularly? Even if you can only think of like just one of many things, what's one thing about this religion that you're coming out of that causes this anger for you?
Well, if I'm to be honest, I lost somebody I knew to COVID, and people I saw fighting anti-vaxxers were pretty much all the atheists. So that I've broken off of Christianity before, but that's what caused the latest break.
So you had a lot of Christians that were pushing anti-vax propaganda?
Yeah, I was hearing a lot of it from my side, and that that's why my side, part of me is disgusted with my side.
Yeah, and let me be very clear, Jasmine. That is not your side that you have to worry about. I don't know if you say that because you're so used to saying it or because you feel more comfortable saying it. But if you're one of the people fighting against that bullshit, there are Christians out there that understand science, and you may have been one of them. But I don't think that you're an anti-vaxxer, and I don't think that you're spreading health misinformation or hurting people. I think you have every right, and you were very justified in being upset and disgusted by the people who are spreading lies about, medical information that they have no idea about. And this is something that we face a lot. In fact, this is, I know I've told this story before. I don't know if you've heard it, but this is one of the reasons why I knew that I was on the right track with my career, because I was talking about how COVID works and how vaccines work. And someone accused me of being a robot sent by the government to turn people away from God. And I knew that I was talking to the right people.
Yeah,
and so yes. And so that's one of my, if I could put that on a CV, I would. That's
government robot.
That's who you're dealing with. I don't think that those are the people that are on your side, so to speak. I don't think that's your camp that you have to worry about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like we said before, there's atheists that are prone to the conspiratorial thinking too, right? So
I think it was the last show.
Christians don't squarely own that.
Yeah, I think that was one that Jimmy was talking about was he assumed all atheists were going to be smart and skeptical and all these things, and he was surprised to find that they're not always.
Not always. No, it turns out everybody's just people. It's the craziest thing.
Isn't that wild?
I mean, I'm not saying that there's a problem with atheism, but right now theism seems a whole hell of a lot worse.
That's your exposure, vector, right? Like, you shouldn't make a choice about a belief based on the people that you see enacting your values the best. Like that's a trap, right? That's a trap. You need to have a sound epistemology. The most important thing is to have a sound epistemology, and everything else can build from there. So figuring out how to figure things out is the most important thing. You can surround yourself with people who have all different belief systems who share your values, but the most important thing is to have a sound epistemology. Sometimes generalized anger like that can come from multitude of places. It can come from a sense of uncertainty. It can come from a sense of break in identity. It sounds like maybe these are the types of people that you've previously identified with, and now you don't want to be identified as like them. I've experienced that on the other side. I've seen atheists, and I'm like, that's one of the reasons I started my channel, is because when people thought of atheists, they thought of a loud, white guy screaming about how stupid people were. And I was like, it's not kind of it's not maybe the best way that all of us could be represented. Maybe more of us should be represented. So, and this goes I get the guy that referenced the speech that I gave. One of the things that I talked about in that speech is how sometimes decentralized communities, people who share basically just a thing in common, like atheism, which is just the answer to a question, they have difficulty finding community formation because values and shared goals are what forms and unifies communities more than anything. And religion's done a really good job of cornering the market on that, but they don't have a monopoly on it and they don't have a patent on it. So other people can do it as well. If you don't feel like those are the people whose values you align with and you're angry about how they're representing you, you can find people who do share your values a little bit better. I don't want you to deconstruct your faith simply based on not wanting to identify with people who are the worst version of it. You should, in my opinion, deconstruct your faith because it's false, but you're not good. I want you to come to that the right way, right?
Yeah. And it's also important to remember, even in Christianity, that happens all the time. That's why there are, what is it, 2,000 to 3,000 different denominations of Christianity right now. Every single one of them thinks all the other ones are wrong, because when you go to the church next to your house and they say something repugnant that you don't agree with, you go to the next church down the street, and then you find the right church that says the right version of what you want to hear. I know I have plenty of Christian friends, especially growing up, that, I left that church, they were homophobic, and I went to this church because they're more accepting. They're reading the same book and they're giving the same sermon. They just, one of them allows you to paint your fingernails without making fun of you. And what's the difference, right? What's actually the difference? It's just you found the one that meets your comfort level and your personal values. And so, religious people do this all the time, and deconstructing religion just based on a value statement like that, in particular, like Shannon said, might not be a great idea, because then you're going to fall back on the rest of the religion and get sucked into the next church. Whereas if you were to, deconstruct it on the value of this belief system hurts people, and this belief system causes people to be irrational about certain things that they really shouldn't be, and this belief system takes away people's ability to cope in healthy ways with death and with the finality of life and with the concept of disease and with mistakes that you make in your life, and justice and forgiveness and retribution and all of these other things that get tangled up into this narrative of what the religion is. I think those are great value reasons to deconstruct your faith. But at the end of the day, I think Shannon hit the nail on the head when she said the best reason to deconstruct your faith is because it's not a real thing. And like you said, you don't have a good reason to believe it. And personally, not having a good reason to believe something is true is a great reason to believe that it's not true.
Yeah.
Well, how do we prevent the cognitive errors that lead, especially theists, to maybe not behave in the most morally or ethically of ways?
Which in particular do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, let's take Roe versus Wade. I mean,
yeah.
We can all you're both educated. You both know what that's doing to young people and people with uteruses in this. It's not good.
Uh-huh.
And,
yeah, it's horrific, and it's not just because of abortion.
Oh yes, there's many implications.
Yeah. So you're asking what do we do to get rid of these cognitive barriers? I heard Shannon start to mouth the words, "Get rid of the cognitive barriers," and like that's something that comes along. And I'm sure you can expound on that more, but I think that comes along really with when you start to, mother of God, when you start to divorce your religious beliefs from your moral beliefs, and when you start to realize that they have always been separate. You are a good person not because of your belief in the Bible. In fact, I would argue that if you really believed everything in the Bible, you would be a bad person. You are a good person all on your own. You're a good person because you understand the general social mores of the society that you live in. You're a good person because you have a good moral compass. You have intelligence. You have compassion. You're able to see the lives and the feelings and the pain of people around you, and you want to try to make things generally better because that's what good people do. And so when you look at something like Roe v. Wade, I guarantee you the Christian talking point, and I am generalizing here, forgive me, but like the Christian talking point of abortion is murder and we need to protect these unborn babies because that's what God wants. Those people who say that, number one, are failing to remember that there's not a single breath about abortion in the Bible, aside from that one part in, I think it was Numbers,
the testimony on faithful wife in Numbers.
Exactly.
Where they actually perform one, other than that.
Yeah, if your wife cheated on you, then she deserves to have an abortion, and
Drink
you do
the better
it with magic
water.
dust.
We'll find out by making her infertile and
so,
forcing the baby out.
Right, there's that whole bit, but beyond that, like, beyond what the Bible actually does or doesn't say, they also fail to remember that, like, they don't believe that. If they genuinely thought that abortion was murder, that children were actually being murdered, I have enough confidence in them being good people to think that they would actually storm into those abortion clinics, not hold up signs outside of them. And also, I have the thought that, like, if I were to come up to someone who is a Christian, who is pro-life or whatever, and say, hey, fun fact about me, I fucking murdered a kid once. I just found a child on the side of the road, kicked his head right in, just completely destroyed this child. No, I don't know who he was, but I slit a little baby's throat, and it was the wildest thing I've ever done. I think that they would treat me much differently than if I was a woman and I said I had an abortion when I was in my 20s because I couldn't afford it to have a kid. I don't think that they would treat those two situations the same at all. So I don't think that they believe what they're saying. I certainly don't think they're acting the way that they believe. You know what I mean? And again, this goes back to your values, your actual goodness is already divorced from this religion. Just making the mental leap to accept that is something really important. I've been talking for a long time. Shannon, what do you think?
Like when it comes to the abortion thing, I think that like the murder thing, it's just a cognitive shortcut that they've created so that they can justify righteous indignation. And as with anything like that, it falls apart under nuance. So like once you start to actually analyze the circumstances, it falls apart. But part of religious structures is that they're really, really good at reinforcing that justification. They're really, really good at saying, no, we not only are we right, we are righteous and we are good. Like what we are doing the good thing. That's the most psychologically difficult thing to overcome, is because they have this realistic and legitimate perception, I think, a lot of them, that they do really think that they're saving life. Because of how it's been framed, because of how it's been presented to them, and how it's been like banged into their heads that they're, this is the good fight. They're fighting the good fight. Conversation and dialogue are the best way towards doing that, forcing them to elicit their own empathy by getting them to think and talk about real life situations is another really, really good way to do it. On a mass scale, the best you can do is continue to educate, the things that Forrest does when he breaks apart, what pregnancies actually look like, what some of the risks are, like us explaining the differences in vernacular. Like when somebody says late-term abortion, that's essentially just a delivery. When the post-birth abortion is my favorite new one. That's just a ridiculous slang term that doesn't mean anything. Like these are all propaganda terms that people are throwing out there in order to perpetuate the mill. So like the best thing that you can do on a macro level is just continue to educate, but on an individual level, eliciting empathy and dialogue so that people see how their perceived perspective falls apart under the nuance of reality is, I think, the best way to do it.
That's beautifully put. Jasmine, what do you think about those things?
Do you think theists are more prone to cognitive errors or psychological errors?
No. Is the answer to that?
No,
Theists?
I think
no.
Yeah. No, I don't.
We all are. Humans are.
I think that. Yeah, I think that religion is really good at using, logical fallacies and things to make arguments to young people until they believe that those fallacies are actually good logic. And you see that a lot, especially when you talk to, one thing that I get asked all the time is, can you be religious and also be a scientist? Because I am a biologist and I do science communication. People come to me all the time like, well, I'm Christian. Can I be a scientist too? And the thing is, of course you can. There are plenty. I've worked for religious scientists before. One of my old bosses was a PhD atomic and molecular physicist and a practicing Catholic. You can totally do that. But the fact is, you have to recognize the fact that you are using a completely different set of rules, a completely different kind of thinking for this one thing than you do for everything else in your life. And you are trained as a scientist how to think, not what to think, how to think, and make sure that you are not falling into these traps. And you're deliberately putting that aside for this one, thing that you hold. And you see that if this can happen to, the greatest thinkers in the world, this can absolutely happen to any random child that is brought into a Sunday school to be indoctrinated. And that's why it's often said, if we stopped teaching science to a whole generation of people, science would be rediscovered. We would pick it up again. We'd get right back to work because humans are generally curious, and we'd find out the same facts about the universe. But if we stopped teaching religion to one generation of people, religion's over. It's done. It's dead. There's no way that any normal, moral person would tell a child, you deserve to burn forever because you're so evil because you were born, unless they were also taught that and lied to, and their parents were taught to that and lied to, and their parents were taught that. This is, something that's passed on. It's not something that's, coming up as a natural discovery in the universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you do have a point. I mean, I'm a theist. I never forced any religion onto my kid, and he happens actually to be atheist, but I don't know. I have a lot to think about. Thank you both for your work and your time.
No problem. Thank you for
Jasmine,
calling.
you were
It was nice
awesome.
to talk
Thanks
to
so
you.
much for calling in. Feel free to call in anytime I'm on because you're a delight. Bye-bye. I can't speak for anybody else. Call in especially when somebody else is on and bother them. Jasmine's awesome.
We've had 2 good calls.
Oh, definitely. Right? Back to back, yo. How wonderful is that?
Just good
so we've got a few people on the line right now that seem really interesting. Do you have a particular one that you're interested in there, Shannon?
You're in charge today. I don't want to. The reins belong to you, my dude.
Well, I wanted to see if you had an opinion, but if you won't give
I don't have.
one,
I'm just a girl.
We're going to go over into line 4 here. We've got Charlie. Pronouns are he, him, calling from Colombia. This sounds really interesting. Reconciling unethical and bigoted behavior with success and prosperity. That sounds delightful. Charlie, how can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi.
Awesome.
Hi, Forrest. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey, what's going on, Charlie? So what do you want to talk to us about today?
What I wanted to talk about was, well, essentially how essentially we hold on. There are some pretty nasty beliefs out there, and people with nasty beliefs. But what happens when nastiness gives you good things in life? One rabbit hole I was in many years ago was the right-wing manosphere, and on the right-wing manosphere, so they talked about women, how to get along better with them, but also about how feminism is so anti-male and destroying men, feminizing men, and look outside looking in, it becomes a bit of a cult. But but you've also had people who take those ideas and then have better relationships, and men who have, I don't know, hotter girlfriends. And
as if that's a goal, like a scale of hotness.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Surely, whenever we
better.
talk about theism, one of the most common things we get is well, it did XYZ good thing for me. And even if you think that theism is bad, even if you think that my religion is evil, even if you think that the things I teach are horrible, it pulled me out of depression. It got me sober. It saved my marriage. It makes people more community building. It whatever random good thing. And the question is, can you get those good things any other way that don't have the baggage of the shitty religion? I can sit here and talk all day about how fascism is great because it brings about law and order. More criminals are punished and there's less crime on the street under fascist regimes. But it's also fucking fascism, and it's a lot worse than the little tiny bit of benefit that might provide, right? And I would rather risk that benefit being lost than take on all the awful things that come along with fascism. And in the same way, if somebody is going to sit here and talk about how feminism is anti-man and feminizing men or whatever else you talked about, that's completely absurd. And even if it makes that guy maybe go out and work a little bit harder because he's trying to prove how masculine he is or whatever like that, that little bit of benefit that might come from that is not even close to worth the really messed up way that he's thinking otherwise.
It's not just
no matter how hot his girlfriend is.
Or how hot his girlfriend is, exactly. The hot girlfriend is not worth being that messed up in the head.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, from this world, there's this guy he's been around for a while. They blew up so much because of TikTok and a pyramid scheme he made. This guy called Andrew Tate.
If you say Andrew Tate, I'm going to lose it.
He just did. That's the second time this week I've heard that name.
Andrew Tate.
Lord.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with him.
Oh, God, he's the worst.
Well, Shannon, Andrew Tate has essentially made millions of dollars from essentially being a pimp But the women we pimped out, who he says he treats like property, they're also very loyal to him, and they're like his lovers too.
So, like, abuse structures will do that. Abuse and manipulation structures.
Yeah, I was
will
gonna
do that.
say,
I'm trying to.
people tend to do those things.
Yeah, so I'm struggling to find the good here, because the moment that you said this guy's name, Forrest had an immediate reaction. It looks like, I'm guessing the chat's had a reaction too. So it sounds like there's a lot of
fill
negative.
You in briefly.
Okay.
This is the guy who says that women shouldn't have jobs because that's a masculine thing, and that feminizes all men because it's putting women in a man's role and making all men more feminine. And he's the same guy that anytime anybody critiques him or challenges him, his immediate response is, well, what color is your Bugatti? Because my Bugatti is because he has fancy toys and he has the brain of a child, so he thinks that makes him super strong and powerful.
So I'm struggling to see
ridiculous.
where the good things he has is. So is the metric that we're striving for that? So is the only metric that we're striving for a fulfilled life that we have a lot of money and we abuse people into doing the things that we want, and we consider that happiness? Like, is that a laudable goal that people are striving for? Well, most of the people who would hear about somebody like that would have a horrible reaction, clearly, to the type of person that is. And I can't imagine that the quality of his actual day-to-day relationships are great. Nope. Because it sounds like he's either manipulated or abused or forced his way through power dynamics into even having any relationships at all. So none of them could potentially be healthy. Actually kind of feel like this is the type of person that I would feel bad for, not the type of person that I would strive to be like, regardless of how much money he has. That's awful.
I want to throw this out there. If anybody takes any clips from the show, it needs to be that, because it is actually a little bit scary how much you are hitting the nail on the head for somebody who has never heard of this person. You are describing the dynamics of how he speaks I've heard of so perfectly.
Well, I've heard of it twice this week. Somebody's mentioned his name, and I googled him, and he looks like a bald guy with, I think he was wearing sunglasses.
That's the one.
Of what I know about him. Yeah. Okay. That's that. But from your descriptions,
he got on the internet and he made a bunch of really terrible, smooth brain talking points about masculinity, and now he's blown up because a bunch of people who have never touched a boob wanted to
incredibly
talk about
banal.
How great he is.
That's very banal, and that's why would anybody want what? That's just not a goal that one should strive for. Being perceived as somebody who's a jackass just doesn't sound like something that I would wake up in my daily affirmations in the mirror and say. Like, I want to have a lot of money, and in order to get all of that money, I want to have a huge negative public perception of me be something that exists. I want all of my relationships to be toxic, and I want everything about me to be substanceless artifice. Let's go conquer the day. That sounds like garbage. That doesn't sound like the definition of a good thing to me. That sounds like, if anything, it's the personification of why these types of belief systems and anti-feminist dudes are actually pitiable.
But there's a strategy there. By getting so much attention, by living rent-free in other people's head, he gets a big audience, and even negative reactions, he gets a sale. So
that's something that I've heard several people talk about. That's why a lot of people don't talk about him anymore, because they realize that every time they talk to him, they're only putting money in his pocket. But again, as Shannon was just saying, at the end of the day, I would much rather be broke and be making the world a better place than be a millionaire because I hurt a lot of people and spread a lot of really toxic nonsense and rotted out a bunch of young men's brains. Like, I'm sorry, this is the same dude who talks about how men used to be real men and women used to be real women, sells this ridiculous pseudo what do you call it, nostalgia, the pseudo nostalgia about like this perfect idealized society of a real men and women. It's just it's nonsense, and it's something that anybody with half a brain can think their way out of. And like, all he does is hurt people in order to make money. I would rather be broke and a good person. It's weak arguments from a weak personality.
Yeah.
Does any of that make sense, Charlie?
What
What we just said about. I'm asking if any of that makes sense. What we just said.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'd also like to know you. It says you called in as a theist. Is there a reason for you want to talk about that at all?
No. It's just that I've listened to the Wednesday show. The Wednesday show is like less theistic concepts, and it was originally
generally speaking, I suppose.
But I've also but you guys but I've also liked how you guys have started it, and
well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah, the topics that they bring up, because you can't bring it up on, say, Atheist Experience. Because you get more
the hosts of the Atheist Experience are the worst.
They're all terrible.
Me and Forrest
They're all
are literally hosts on the Atheist Experience. So that's funny.
And I stand by her. You're the worst.
That show. Oh my god.
Right? Anyway,
that's funny.
Well, Charlie, it's been fun talking to you. I hope that we covered how you cannot reconcile unethical and bigoted behavior with success and prosperity, because the success and prosperity you get are worthless if you are unethical and bigoted.
Yeah. Like, what's all the money in the world if you don't have a single healthy personal relationship that you can be proud of and foster?
Seriously.
And your legacy to the world is a toxic mass of trash.
Right. I guarantee, when Andrew Tate is dead and gone, he's not taking his Bugatti with him, but no one's going to remember him fondly, and then very quickly no one will remember him at all. You know what I mean? I'd rather be one of those guys that's remembered for the contributions that he made and make the world a little bit better place.
Yeah. Wait, well, one thing he sells is freedom from the Matrix, and he sees compassion.
What Matrix?
He even sees what
Matrix?
He even sees, let's say, the matrix of leftism, wokeism, gender, gender fluidity,
and the matrix of gender.
Right.
But
see, and right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Those are all very fun little buzzwords to say that this person doesn't have the capacity to think about anybody else's perspective but his own. He is a very self-absorbed and self-entitled person who has never had a thought other than I'm great because. And so that's what you get out of that, is you get someone who promotes any other concept of reality as the Matrix that you need to be woken from, and that's absolute nonsense, dude.
It's like somebody put a Ben Shapiro word generator in a Reddit incel string.
It's like a roulette wheel.
It was like
pulling little balls
these together and just whatever comes out.
Absolutely. Anyway, we've got some other callers on the line, Charlie. It's been a lot of fun. We're gonna let you go though. Have an awesome rest of your day, man.
Oh man, I want to be in the gender matrix. If there's a gender matrix, I want in. I don't want out. I want in.
That sounds tight. I'd be all about that.
Matrix. Right?
I'm absolutely in the wokeism matrix. That sounds amazing. Oh my god. We have two questions here on the line that sound really interesting. One of them is specifically addressed to me, and so I'm hoping we can crank it out as fast as we can because I want to get as many things possible. But who knows? Maybe this will be a thing. Robert,
I have to step away for half a second anyway, so why don't you do that? You do that. I'm gonna step away for 2 seconds. I'll be back.
You go do your thing. Robert had a question about speciation. Robert, what do you want to know?
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm awesome.
Can you hear me?
Doing? I can hear you just fine.
By the way, just one question beforehand. Has anybody ever told you that you look a bit like Charlie Sheen?
No. I've never. Who is Charlie Sheen?
You've heard of Martin Sheen? The
Martin
actor?
Sheen? I'm going to look at it. You said Martin Sheen?
Yeah, but you look like his son, Charlie Sheen, who's also in the movies.
Oh. Okay, I will look that person up. That sounds familiar. Maybe I've seen this person. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I don't see the resemblance myself, but who knows? Right on.
Okay.
Well, thank you, I suppose.
Okay. On a few broadcasts, I can't even remember on this show, you commented. And by the way, I'm not a biologist. I'm not even in the sciences. I just read a lot about them.
Right
on how difficult taxonomy is, species, speciation, identifying species. And I wanted to add a little bit. I mean, I agree with you for what it's worth. But it's, first of all, it seems to work much better for the animal kingdom than for the botanical kingdom. Would you agree with that?
Less so now because we're getting so good at we're getting so good at genomics now that that used to be a problem because plants have this horrible system called alteration of generations where they have a sporophyte phase and a gametophyte phase. And that means one that generates sperm and eggs and one that generates spores, which then go on to become new plants. And those two phases can look entirely different. And so a lot of times, people would see these two phases and think they were completely different plants when they were in fact the same thing. But now, and that's just one example. There's a lot of other reasons, but we're getting so good at genomics now that we're able to really identify species based on gene sequencing way better. So it's getting better and better. We still have the hurdle of the international conventions of nomenclature and of how we identify these things. So for example, there's the ICZN, which is the International Convention on Zoological Nomenclature, and you have to pass every species definition, naming convention, things like that through them. And there's one for botany, and there's one for bacteria, and there's one for everybody else. So that's still kind of an outdated hang up a little bit, but to answer your question, kind of, yeah, but it's getting better. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, well, I mean, science is getting better. So we agree. But here's the thing. Let me ask you, are you familiar with the taxonomy of macaws?
I mean, not tremendously, but I know about macaws, sure.
Hard no.
I mean, you know about them. Okay. I mean, there's so much, nobody can know everything. Here's the thing. Now a blue and gold macaw is called Aron Ra, okay? And a green wing is called Chloropterus. I'm sorry, Chloropterus. You can breed the two and get a harlequin. And a harlequin itself can be bred. Did you know that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a lot of things. So, yeah. And I haven't heard these words in a long time. I used to work with a lot of macaws. So, this is bringing back happy memories right now.
Oh, I own a macaw, and I've never met a macaw I haven't loved. Okay? But the point is that I've always learned speciation is the closest inbreeding unit. Isn't that an adequate definition of a species?
Kind of. So what you're talking about there is called the biological species concept. And that is the idea that if two animals, we'll just stick with animals. If two animals can interbreed and produce fertile offspring, then they are the same species. That's the biological species concept. But it's important to remember that the concept, not the theory, not the law, not the model, not anything it's just one way of defining species, because the honest truth is, what everybody has to remember is that there is no such thing as species. It's just what we call a group of similar organisms.
Right.
And so there are plenty of
it's a way of organizing.
Exactly. So there are plenty of other ways to define what a species is. There's a phylogenetic species concept, which is based on their relationships. There's an ecological species concept based on the role that they have, their niche. There's a fossil species concept for how are you going to know if these two dinosaurs could produce fertile offspring? You know what I mean? My favorite is the Heinesian species concept because it takes an evolutionary look at things. It's a subsect of the phylogenetic species concept, which is to say that if two groups have diversified through divergent evolution and their common ancestor is dead, then we call them two different species. But especially when you're working with reptiles and birds, you're going to find a lot, and that's just from my experience. There's probably mammals, you're going to find a lot of what you're talking about where you can make hybrids, and those hybrids can totally be fertile, and it's not as simple as when you breed a lion and a tiger or whatever like that.
That's why I was asking, because I've never gotten a good answer. And you really have to view, just macaws, because that's what I'm concentrating on. You have to view them in a different light as far as the breeding is concerned and the speciation. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. I would say yes if you're working with them, but no in general, because at the end of the day, that's the truth with anything. So a speciation event is kind of an arbitrary marker, usually defined by genetic variation and genetic diversity. But again, there is no set definition of a species. So like when we talk about speciation events, there's something we call Wright's rule, W-R-I-G-H-T, like the Wright brothers. And Wright's rule is to say that evolutionary trends cannot predict speciation events. Even though we can say it's going in this direction, you can't say for sure, and then they're going to be a species at this time, and we're going to have a different, because it is just so unbelievably fuzzy. So macaws are not even close to the only groups of animals, the only taxa that I can point to. Like here in Oklahoma, where I live, we have like 4 different kinds of box turtles, depending on how west you go. And they can all interbreed with each other, and they're all blended. But if you pick an eastern three-toed and an ornate from the west half of North, they look remarkably different, and yet there's this fuzzy gradient all the way across Oklahoma. And that's just one example that I worked with for a long time during my undergrad. So like, I wouldn't say that that's special to macaws at all. I would say that if you're working,
I didn't mean to.
Animals, no, see that.
I'm sorry. Maybe I expressed myself poorly. I didn't mean to imply that in the least. I just said because
it sounded like you were saying, like, is this like a unique thing that macaws have?
Yeah, I was just because I was talking about macaws. I did not make any claim. That's that type of special.
Good. Okay, I misunderstood. Pardon me.
Okay, and maybe I expressed myself badly, but maybe what's bothering me is the nomenclature. You know, why with the example I gave you, one thing, is called this, one thing is called that. Look, with dogs, you breed a Cocker Spaniel with a Poodle, and you still get a Canis domesticus.
Right.
And that I can understand. Okay? And it doesn't, my point is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't translate well to macaws, or probably all the other animalia you can come up with.
Right. The thing to remember with that, I wouldn't say so, because with dog breeding, like there is a huge amount of phenotypic diversity because of the breeding patterns over the last 12,000 years. And so like that's something that you can only really get that kind of diversity from artificial selection. It doesn't really apply out into the usual, so with macaws, they don't have the post-zygotic barrier of like that you would get from other species like that, or other diverse species like this, where you can't produce fertile offspring. However, they're still phenotypically different enough naturally that it makes sense to identify them as different species, because again, at the end of the day, breeding has nothing to do with it. And also it's important to remember that the way that it's set up, and this is just the way it's been for a long time, again, because of those, the ICZN and the way they're done, you can change something's genus around, but you can't change its species name. And so like we can decide that they're in the same genus, they're similar enough, they interbreed enough, whatever. But if they're already identified as different species, we kind of have to keep doing that. And so like it's not unique at all, and it is just, it's the problem that you are facing right now with where you're looking at this is that you have learned too much. You have learned enough to realize that it's not as simple as we like to pretend. And that's just what happens when you get to learning about this stuff. And what I would say to you is just embrace that fuzziness and obviously you can make sense of it, but don't try to like lock it into like a set rule structure, because you're not going to find one.
Look at it. Okay. But look at this way, Forrest. That's why I ask experts like you. I don't understand.
I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude. Okay. But I appreciate your vote of confidence. Thank you.
No, I mean, you really are. I am impressed with your presentations. And of course, I'm not a scientist. Remember that. Have you read any books by
Carl Zimmer? You don't know how stupid I really am.
So you haven't displayed it. Have you read any works by Carl Zimmer?
The name sounds really familiar, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
He's interesting, and I highly recommend, especially 3 books which he wrote. One on E. coli, one on parasites, and the other one, which is Evolution, the Birth of a Novel Idea. All 3. And I'm in fact, I'm so impressed that I even wrote to the author to tell him how impressed I was. He's not a scientist. He worked with scientists at Yale.
Okay. Didn't he write The Hot Zone?
Let me see, just a second. Let me just make a click here.
I'm looking behind me because I'm 99% sure I've got... Because if he's the one that wrote The Hot Zone and The Demon in the Freezer, then I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
No, you might have somebody else. But as I say, Parasite Rex, inside the bizarre world of nature's most dangerous creatures, is absolutely.
I see. Yeah, I've got him pulled up here. Yeah, no, I've heard of him. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll look him up. Thank you.
Yeah, I even gave my doctor, for his birthday, I got him a copy of Microcosm, E. coli, and the New Science of Life.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
yeah,
the other one that he wrote, the other one, which I highly recommend, is She Has Her Mother's Laugh, The Powers, Perversions, and Potential of Heredity. It's about 600 pages, and it's the most thorough treatment from a layperson's view of heredity that I've ever come across.
I would be interested in. Right on.
Yeah,
thank you so much. I appreciate the recommendations.
Yeah, would it be possible? I don't mean to take up too much of your time. I'm only one simple, humble 75-year-old person, but has
earned it.
Shannon come back yet?
No, I've been back for a while. I've just been sitting here. I was only gone for like 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Robert.
Hello.
Hello?
Okay. I wanted to. Hello. I wanted to ask you a question on a totally different subject, but I think it's in your bailiwick about memory.
Me or Shannon?
Shannon.
Okay. I want to understand. Yeah.
Sure. We got to go to the next call relatively soon, though. I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
I'm sorry.
We have to go to the next call relatively soon, but I'll do my best to be succinct. What was your question?
Okay. Why is it that certain, for example, I have an oddball memory because generally the people that I find, if I question an older person, he, she, never mind the pronouns, will remember very well something that happened 70 years ago, but can't remember what they did yesterday or the week before.
The short-term memory deteriorates over time. You get less and less. Your ability to commit things to memory deteriorates over time. Like short-term memory.
Do we know why?
Lots of theories. You tend to have a sort of like demyelination events, and you have far less branching and pruning. Like that takes place as you get older. Your neural pathways tend to be pretty like static at that point in time. The myelin sheath, which is like, if you think of like an electrical cord, like this charging cord here, the electrical component is inside, like the metal thing that transmits the current.
Right.
This wrapping that's around it that protects it and makes it, go in one direction and go quickly. In the brain, we have that around our synapses, and it's called myelin. And your myelin sheath can deteriorate over time. It breaks down like just anything else in your body over time. And as a result of that, it takes more energy to maintain the existing neural pathways that you have. From age,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last
you're not creating new ones as readily. Right. So the energy that's required this is just one of the theories, but the energy that's required to create the new neural pathways that are persistent. So converting short-term memory into long-term memory is the result of creating new neural pathways that are persistent. That generally happens, due to repetition, something having meaning when it comes to your behavior or engagement in the world. You become more discerning, I guess, about what is or isn't meaningful, what is or isn't necessary to retain, because your brain is kind of conserving the energy that it requires to do its day-to-day function, operate your body, those sorts of things. Remember what is important because you've already accumulated so much. So it's not going to utilize its resources as readily to create long-term pathways for erroneous information, because all of that myelin is starting to deteriorate. It's more difficult to recall memories in general. It takes more energy to recall memories in general. It can be a little bit more chaotic. You can get them in a bit more of a disjointed fashion. So your brain's not going to invest a great deal of energy into creating new unnecessary pathways just because of age and energy conservation.
I see. God, I'm an exception, believe it or not. And I don't say that to brag, just simply as a statement of fact. I have no problem.
I can tell you're quite the sharp one. I can tell for sure.
Oh,
well, that's great.
Okay.
That's very good.
The interesting thing is, And people have quizzed me on this. And, and in other words, they've quizzed me in an empirical way. So they'll ask me something, and then we have a document or something to show that I'm right.
Yeah.
Or somebody gets the same memory.
Have you been a lifelong learner? Have you been somebody that's always been reading and exploring new concepts? Because it could be that you trained your brain to do this, as opposed to like the average person.
Also, if you were regularly physically active throughout your life, there's a huge amount of data that shows that if you
100%.
get up and sweat at least 2 or 3 times a week, you are substantially more likely to maintain your memory and to fight off dementia later on in life.
100%.
Hey, you're actually getting me out of my depression. Thank you very much. Because I plan.
You're very, very glad.
Yeah, I plan to continue reading. I've always in my life basically read and read and read to the annoyance of others, unfortunately, because I remember what I read. May I, Shannon, actually for both of you, may I suggest that you look up something? A man by the name of Alexander Aitken, Aitken. He was a mathematician who taught at the University of Edinburgh. His dates are 1895 to 1967. So I would call him in the modern age. He had the most phenomenal memory of all times. Most idiots say this. The term idiot really applies, in the modern sense of the word, of somebody with limited intelligence. Right. They can do just one thing. This is the only mathematician we know whom you would take the word idiot away from. This guy could calculate anything in his head. And he taught mathematics.
We do have to let you go, though, Robert. We have another caller that's been waiting very patiently. You're very enjoyable to talk to. I just want to be respectful of the people that have been waiting as well.
Right.
So
I understand. But I'm sorry,
you're
look
awesome,
him up.
Robert.
His name is Aitken.
I will.
I already looked him up.
Okay.
He's from New Zealand.
I've got him right here.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Robert. I really appreciate your call and your questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your
passion,
Robert.
You've been a delight. Later.
Okay.
An unbelievably nice dude.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got next. I think we've got time for maybe one more call, and then you want to.
Yeah, sure. We can do one more, and then we can do the super talky things, super chats, super talkies.
Sure. Love that. So I've got. Let's see. We're gonna go with this one. This is. By the way, I should before I jump in here. The guy who runs the line, Jimmy Snow, asked me to thank Robert for cawing into the show.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I want to take this opportunity to say that I fucking hate Jimmy Snow. How dare you ask me to do this? But we're going to go ahead and move over to Maze Dog. Cawing the line. Yes, that's what it is. We've got Maze Dog, pronouns are he, him in Kentucky, wants to ask about if there are more than 2 genders, why or why not? Maze Dog, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Not bad.
Awesome.
I just almost choked to death
so did you
because Jimmy made Forrest do something funny. Other than that, I'm okay.
Did you want to elaborate on your question any further than what I have here?
Oh, no. I enjoyed the last caller. He actually made my day because I actually enjoyed him, but I don't have any more questions besides this one.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So, did you want us to just answer as it's written?
Yes, I do, but I also want to get your opinions also.
Okay.
Oh, I have no opinion on this. I am a scientist and I care about evidence alone. And I can tell you that the evidence is very clear that, yeah, of course there are more than 2 genders. Gender is a fluid construct. It's a social thing. It's so what's really important to remember when we talk about bioanthropology, when we talk about the biology of humans, is that sex is a biological reality. Sex is a thing that is built by a variety of things. The way we define sex in biology tends to go down to the size of your gametes. If you have lots and lots of small gametes, we call them sperm and we call you a boy. If you have very relatively large few gametes, we call those eggs and we call you a female, right? That's also not the only way to define sex in biology, and no way to define sex in biology is strictly binary. But that's another thing for another time. When we talk about humans in particular, we have this new construct as well called gender, which we tend to associate very closely with sex, so much so that people tend to think that they're the same thing. But the fact of the matter is, the definition of gender is a person's like reflection of and representation of their society's expectation of their perceived sex and their feelings toward that representation or that expectation and their feelings towards their perceived sex. Gender is a performance, it's an action, it's a social construct, it's a fluid thing. It varies from society to society, from generation to generation, from person to person, from day to day. There is no such thing as, you know, the binary that we are taught. And most people are surprised to find out that things like chromosomes and genitalia don't have as much to do with this as usually thought. That they're not as inextricably linked as people like to pretend. So yeah, there have been plenty of societies throughout history and across the world that have had more than two genders in the day-to-day function of things. Today, we see through studies into biology, especially in neuroscience, that there is, and endocrinology as well, I should say, that there is not always a strong connection between someone's perceived biological sex, what they were assigned at birth, and the gender that they, you know, identify with and perceive themselves as. And for me as a biologist and for lots and lots of other scientists and doctors out there, if your body says one thing and your brain says another thing, I'm going to go with what your brain's saying. And I could go into that in a huge amount more detail. There are books written on this. There are lecture series about this. I've done classes about this. Like I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to talk your ear off. But just long story short, for what you're saying here, yes, there are absolutely more than two genders. Gender is a social thing, not a biological thing. So by definition of absolutely, it's just what we make of it.
Okay. See, and the reason why I want to ask that is because, in Kentucky, it's pretty conservative. So, you know, and a lot of people, like, there's not really a lot of, like, trans people or there's not really a lot of LGBTQ people around where I am. And, I mean, there are some, but it's not a lot. But
I bet you there are more than you think.
Probably more than you think.
I was going to say, yeah,
I was just about,
just how conservative it is.
I was just about to say that there is in a lot of places, but it's just right now where I am, it's pretty conservative, and they don't really accept people that are in that spectrum. They like when somebody brings up like, for example, like say that I'm transgender even though I'm not. And I'm living in a conservative city and state. I say that I'm a woman because, well, I was born a male, but I want to be called a woman because I'm a transgender woman. And then you hear conservatives say there's only two genders, you either a male or female. And I would rather call you a male. Like that's just plain disrespectful in my case. You know what I mean? And it's like,
for sure. It's the same thing as, you know, I'm calling you Maze Dog because that's the name that you gave us. If my name is Forrest, if you started calling me Jim, it would be kind of shitty, right? It's not like you can say,
you know
you are this way. This is the label that my parents gave me 30 years ago. That's the best I've got. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well,
so yeah.
I actually understand that. Hold on. How many genders are there? Is intersex a gender also, or is that like a totally different?
So being intersex is a totally different thing. So you know what a lot of times people will say is, you know, you're either XX or XY, and they're talking about what we call allosomes, which are your sex chromosomes. And the fact is that's not true either. There are plenty more configurations. You can, for example, have Klinefelter syndrome where you have XXY, you can have XYY, you can have X and nothing else. That one's called Turner syndrome. And so like there's a lot of variation there, but even just if you stuck with the XX or XY dichotomy, you could have De La Chapelle syndrome where the SRY gene on the Y chromosome translocates to an X chromosome and you will have XX allosomes and a very male phenotype. You could have the opposite of that, would be Sawyer syndrome, where you have XY allosomes, and you have a very female body, you could have a 5-alpha reductase deficiency, you could have androgen insensitivity syndrome, there's a million other ways that this can work. And these are things that we would call intersex people because their chromosomal makeup is either non-binary or it doesn't match their phenotype. And so that's very
still
different
not their
from being
gender,
transgender.
though, just to be clear for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, you're probably about to say the same thing.
From being transgender. It's fine. It's really important distinction to make because sometimes these people get lumped in together. I've even done that before because you're trying to get through the conversation, and that does a disservice to both of them. And so because gender and sex are different things, and because when we study neuroscience, especially, there's a huge amount of studies that show that the neural architecture of the brain is very, very slightly sexually dimorphic. And someone who is a transgender woman, for example, they have a phenotypically male body, but they're identifying as a woman. They also have female neural architecture. Their brain is telling them that they're a woman as well. So it's not just that they woke up today and decided I look good in a dress. Like it's that this is actually a woman that is, for some reason or another, got the wrong bits. And so, these two things are different.
Showing that there's more white matter.
Exactly. That's right. And so when you cover these different things, all of it comes together to just simply say that, sex, gender, and sexual orientation are completely different things. Not a single one of them is a binary. And to answer your question as to how many genders there are, it's as many as we define because it is a complete spectrum. It's a fluid thing. If we decide that there's 100, then we can call it that. But at the end of the day, it just is what it is. It's like the last call that we talked about species. There's no such thing as a species. It's just a label that we use. Gender's the same way.
I like reading books too. Sorry for interrupting you, but
you're going to have some idiot that says, well, then I can change my species. And that's a very different thing. And it's very obvious that they're different. It's interesting to compare the two when talking about social constructs.
Before you say the last thing that you were going to say there, Mace Dog, I just wanted to give you I want to say two things. One, I want to give you something that helped me think of it better, and I'll do that in a sec. Two, if you have more in-depth questions that you want to ask, there's a show on this channel called Transatlantic that's on tomorrow night, and two trans women actually host the show and they take calls as well. They would be great to have an in-depth conversation about that from their own perspectives as trans people, because neither Forrest nor I are trans. But when you talked about, how many different genders are there, this is something that helped me think about it. It's like asking how many different colors are there, right? Like we can identify and recognize different colors. Like most of us can recognize what a yellow is because we all kind of agree on what a yellow is, but there's various shades of yellow that give us some ambiguity. And we can't count really all of the different iterations. We just know that it's a spectrum. Like we know that there's extremes on both ends. And the rest of it is just this gradient that it's very difficult to pinpoint any point on that gradient and say, okay, well, this is what pink is, or this is what green is, because there's going to be variations even once you pinpoint it on that gradient. That helped me think about it a little bit better when it came to stepping outside of the binary, because I'm a very concrete visual thinker, and those seemed analogous to me in a more palpable way. And if that's the type of thinker that you are, maybe that sort of comparison might be able to help you grasp the concept a little bit better as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I actually have. This is my second time actually calling with you guys. I actually did call on what's it called, Truth Wanted. And I actually loved it because it was my first time.
Oh, cool!
And
right on, man.
Like,
that one's from the ACE.
That's on the different channel,
or Atheist Community of Boston. Yeah,
different channel.
Forrest
Sorry
and I are
that.
Everywhere. We're the internet.
Oh no, it's fine. We're on both of them, so like it makes sense if you see us there and you see us here. It's just that this is a for-profit situation and that's a non-profit situation, so we have to make the distinction.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I did tell Objectively Dan that I had 3 admirers on your all show, but I don't want to say the first one, but I will say 2. I admire Objectively Dan. And
we can't talk about people as individual. We can't make speculations about individuals within community on the show. Man's dog about people.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I understand.
You're just fine.
I understand the inclination to want to, continue to carry on the conversation with us with things that we're all familiar with. So I've no ill will whatsoever. It's just not something that we can allow just for the sake of, safety.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
You're okay.
No, you're just
okay. Do you have any other questions before we carry on related to the topic of gender? Or do you want to hold them and call Transatlantic tomorrow? Because I think that they would probably have a great conversation with you and are both wonderful to talk to. And you seem like you're genuinely curious and interested. And that's the type of person that we want to have these dialogues with.
Most
I'll be calling. Trust me. I'll be calling them tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Good, Maze Dog.
Awesome.
Thank you for calling us today.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Maze Dog. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
See you later.
Well, this has been a fantastic
those calls
show.
were delightful.
We didn't get screamed at once.
wanted
Really
to
quickly,
yell at us today,
if you'll
Forrest.
allow me, before we wrap on that, I think Maze Dog said briefly that they love to read. And I know I know Robert was also here saying that he likes reading as well. If anybody's interested in the biological side of this and the anthropological side of this, there's a ton of good books on this. Some ones that I would recommend that I have nearby me. This is Evolution's Rainbow by Joan Roughgarden. This one's fantastic. This one's called Sexing the Body by Anne Fausto Sterling. This one's fantastic. This one up here is more of an ethnographic one. It's called Male Daughters and Female Husbands, Gender and Sex in African Society. This one's really, really cool. I've also got over here is Evolution and Human Sexual Behavior. This one's freaking dope for talking about especially gender and sexuality and whatnot. It's pretty cool. Even though it is a behavioral manual, it's more of an ethological look. Over here nearby, I also had Myths of Gender. This one's a little bit dated, but it's also by Anne Fausto Sterling, but it's kind of old, so you might be interested in that. And I've got a few more, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Also, everybody should definitely read Invisible Women, because this is also awesome about gender biases and data, and it's a really good eye-opening piece when you talk about feminism and science, because it's shocking how much how recent of an idea feminist theory is, especially when talking about things like anthropology and also archaeological theory. Study up on archaeological theory. These two books are great on that one. I recommend Archaeological Theory by Matthew Johnson and Archaeological Theory in the New Millennium by Oliver Harris and Craig Cipolla. These both have great chapters on feminist archaeology. And I know you're thinking archaeology, we're not digging up any dead people, but this is the archaeological theory is the concept of getting into the heads of other humans. And this really helps when you're studying other cultures and understanding the way that they look at things like sex and gender differently than us. And also The Dawn of Everything. This one's new, but it's a real thick bitch. It's this one's great, and it's more of an anarchist look at things, but it also dives into a lot of really cool ideas of how other cultures have operated outside of us. These are all great books, and girl, I could continue, but I'm gonna stop. I think that's probably enough for now. Read some of them. They're fascinating.
You clear that whole bookshelf.
Well,
Forrest,
also,
you
if
like books?
Papers, if you like papers and you don't like books, look up Sexuality Studies and Archaeology by, I think, Barbara Voss, and look up Black Feminist Theory and Archaeology by Kathleen Sterling. Those are fantastic papers. You can probably get free PDFs if you go to Google Scholar. And they're fucking radical and just great summaries of how all this shit works, how sex and gender are different things and how they work in different cultures across time and space. And I hope that helps. And awesome. That is when I'm going to shut the fuck up. Sorry about that. I just had to get that out of the way because I know we had a lot of people who like to read, and I fucking love reading. I
love a good book suggestion.
I need to know who's going to read the first super chat before I put it up.
Anyway, do you, since I've been talking the whole time, Shannon, do you want to start with the super chats since I'm an asshole and I've been rambling this long?
Sure.
Everyone can tell me now. Okay,
everyone
Shannon's first.
Jimmy.
I just need to confirm.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Okay, here we go.
I'll go first.
What do we got?
I'm ready. All right. From Brian Mantle. Forrest is my hypothesis that universes...
What is this?
What? I'm supposed to read it, isn't it? I said I was
going to read it to you.
Don't policing me.
I feel bad.
Just listen. The question this person has for you.
Right.
God, now I have to start over. I hope you're happy.
Sorry.
From Brian Mantle, Forrest is my hypothesis that universes collided and merged together because this cannot be real life.
That's not a complete question. Is your hypothesis what? But like we would have no evidence for that or way to test that because you're asking about things that are outside of everything. what happens when different universes collide. However, if you're interested in things that are similar to that line of thinking and are freaky as shit, look up M theory. It's a way of looking at how different membranes collide to form reality as we know it. And membranes doesn't mean like biological membranes. It means like the fabric of space-time, but in specific dimensions and realities. It's fucking nuts. And there's this great scientist named Lisa Randall. Here's one of
Forrest
books
has a
right
book.
here. It's called Knocking on Heaven's Door. Yeah. This one's great. Lisa Randall is a brilliant physicist, and she explains like the most insane kinds of string theory in ways that I might explain like how breathing works. Like it's unbelievable how great she is. So she has this one. She has another one called Dark Matter and Dinosaurs, which is like tying together several different ideas in science. She's fantastic, and you can probably find some really cool lectures of her about this online. So yeah, look up that, and it might be interesting to you. As far as what your question is at this point, but like that's a cool thing that you might be have fun with later if you wanted. I will read the next super chat now.
Do you promise?
And then I'll fucking reassemble my whole bookshelf later.
I'm gonna interrupt him.
Jimmy,
fuck
you. Jimmy Snow says,
know who was going first. I
thank
promise
you for
you.
drawing the line.
I promise you.
You sent $5 to yourself to make me do this, and
I don't make it all. Yeah, YouTube takes 30% right off the top. Everybody send in your super chats and make Forrest read more puns. Anything $5 or more, he hates puns. Make him read more, $5 or more, and he has to read them.
I'm on that team, actually.
Oh, that's so fucking rude of you. I like good dad jokes. This is just awful. Thank you for calling the show, everybody. Ugh.
Cawing the line. Jesus. What channel are you on?
Oh, fuck me. Thank you for cawing Jimmy's line. I'm going to get it wrong because I won't.
It's not called that.
The indignance. It's the indignance for me. Mm-hmm. All right. Wizard of Frobos? Oh my gosh, I'm bad at the names. My recent response to bless you, Jesus loves you, and the like is stop it, it burns. It burns, it burns.
Love that.
That's funny.
Jim, just stop it. Stop it with me.
I'm just gonna.
How much of your own money are you gonna waste on this?
This is the best part of the show. It's just gonna be me reading super chats and you just reading this over and over.
The hate in my heart at this moment.
Okay, my turn again. All right, from Wonder, she her. A person that would say Jesus loves you as an insult is proving they are not a devout Christian, since they are supposed to believe everyone is a sinner. Jesus. I'm not sure I fully understand. For person who says who would say Jesus loves you as an insult is proving they are not a devout Christian, since they are supposed to believe everyone is a sinner. Oh, does that mean that Jesus is to be a sinner too? I'm not sure.
I think they're meaning to say that like they're using it as like a gotcha to that person while not taking it onto themselves. That's what I'm reading it as. You know what I mean?
Oh, maybe,
yeah. If you're
because
saying that to someone as an insult and not realizing that it applies to you too, you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. No,
that's what I'm getting from. Maybe I'm wrong. Send another $10 if you want me to clarify.
Oh, look, you got a new one. Look,
that's fantastic. We got Fractured Psyche. Okay, that's cool. I got it. Yeah, it took me some time. Hey, Forrest, did you hear about that cheese factory that exploded in France? There was nothing left but debris. That's good. That's fantastic. I like that one a lot. That's great. That's not just terrible. That's what Jimmy put isn't even a pun. That's a great dad joke. That's fantastic.
I'm going to warn you that I'm going to want to respond to the next one, but Shannon can read it.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Two best hosts of all time. Great not hearing. Oh, I didn't get to that part. Great not hearing a condescending host. Oh,
I'll take this one.
Nice.
Oh, just DJ, wait. Do you not like when Matt's here? Is he too condescending of a host? Oh, DJ, that's so sad. Oh, boo-hoo. You think that just because you gave $20, I won't shit on you for shitting on Matt? Fuck you, DJ. Fuck you and the $20 you wrote in on.
Forrest and I just have slightly different engagement strategies. That's all. It takes all kinds of engagement strategies to be effective.
Yeah, I don't like a condescending host.
Give me time. I love whenever I talk about like condescension. I love the old lines like, "Well, I don't want to be condescending." Condescending is when you talk down to somebody like they're stupid and don't know something.
That's funny.
Fuck
your turn.
off, Jimmy Snow. I am your friend, and you're doing this to me. What do we got? Oh, another $5 in Fractured Psyche. 3 conspiracies theorists walk into a bar. You can't tell me it's just a coincidence. That's fantastic.
That's cute. 2
antennas get married on a rooftop. The service wasn't much, but the reception was incredible.
Oh my fucking God. Just kill me. Get me off this show. Get me off the show. Okay. From LS. Love seeing you both. Always learn something new. Thank you. Love seeing you too. Thank you for being here. Next.
People are so sweet today.
Jimmy ready? I don't think Jimmy's ready. He's trying to figure out how to queue up your...
I got to find the puns.
Oh, okay, cool.
On a more serious note, I just found out that I'm colorblind. The news came completely out of the green. That was great.
I love this.
This guy gets it. This guy gets it. This is awesome. It's fantastic.
This person is nailing it.
I got a vendetta against calendars. Their days are numbered.
Oh my
You know about that? Not do anything for it.
Just so you know, it was a user who was a big fan that came up with cawing the line in the live chat, and you keep insulting them. So
I'll do it again.
Yeah. I know. I'm going to keep putting it up.
Okay. James Call, way off topic. Do you think SAD, that's seasonal affective disorder, I'm assuming is what you're talking about, is a disease? Great crossover topic between a bio and a sci. I could have things to say about this. Do you have things to say about this? This I can actually expound upon. Vitamin D deficiency and if the impact on dopamine production and how you get that from sun exposure and that it actually is.
I don't think that sticks, but I'm also not a physician. I studied biomedical science a lot in my undergrad, but not to the point where I can do that. So I'm going to say big fat maybe for you there, man. Sorry you spent $50 for me to say maybe, but I might be hurting people if I say yes and I'm wrong. So I'm going to say I don't know.
So my experience with learning about it is that I wouldn't classify it as a disease, but it is very much a real thing that can happen to people. And seasonal affective disorder is tied to, from what we know, light exposure. And vitamin D, which is something that we produce endogenously, a lot of that we get from exposure to natural sunlight, and that can have an impact on dopamine production. So it's not entirely divorced from the realm of possibility and is fairly well entrenched in the literature. Not so much as a disease. It can also be situational. A lot of people have seasonal depressive episodes because during the summer they tend to be more active and social, and in the winter they can tend to be a little bit more inclined to be inside and away from people and have a little bit more of a kind of solitary existence, and that can have an impact on their mental health as well. And it could be an amalgamation of the two things, but it's not something that is clearly defined, but it's not something that I would entirely dismiss, I guess would be my answer. I don't know if you would deviate from that path.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of where I'm at. It's like the way that you would define disease as opposed to disorder, like it's not pathogenic, but it's not saying that it's not something that fucked something up and that it's predictable and that it has traceable. You know what I mean? So like,
it's also not something that's like in you, right? Like it's not like you are built this way and thus that this is
you wouldn't
a
call it a
potential
symptom or
it's detrimental because of your constitution.
Precisely, yeah. Yeah, so it's I'm really hesitant to say so because I don't want people to, if I'm very wrong about it, I don't want people to treat it like a disease and then either like try to take weird avoidance steps that end up making things worse, or worse, stigmatize it. You know what I mean? I don't know, dude. It's kind of up in the air for me. Ask a real scientist.
Ask a real scientist. Don't ask for us. Find a real scientist. Your turn.
Yeah. We've got $5 from Not Your Average Democrat. Forrest, don't forget to call your family on Thanksgiving. I will forget because of you. You hear me? I don't have many surviving relatives, but those that I have will be sorely disappointed. When they ask me why, I'm going to say, number one, how the hell did you get this number? And number two, it's because of this person on whatever show we're on. The line, the network, the situation. What is this?
Yeah,
the hang up.
Line.
I couldn't come up with it for a second.
Oh, so really it should have been thanks for calling the hang up the entire time.
That's
we have
exactly.
to do it all over again.
And I'll ask you something, Not Your Average Democrat, a question for you to consider. How much does a new roof cost? Nothing.
Fuck.
It's on the house.
What's the next one? What's the next? I have an announcement. Fuck this.
That is always you doing the announcements. Every time. Shannon, do you want to do the announcements? And last time she goes, here's an announcement. Fuck you.
Perfect.
Yeah, correct. That's the only type of announcements I have. All right. So Christopher Chamberlain, finally, after a long time watching, I get to greet Shannon and Forrest with a good old Canadian. How's it going, eh? Hello from Hamilton, Ontario. Hey, bud, what's up? Oh, didn't see you there.
I don't know anything about Canada. I didn't know there were subsections to Ontario. That's fascinating.
Like towns? Hamilton is a town.
I don't know what I thought Ontario was. I didn't
just
remember
like
if it
one
was like
town.
a city. I didn't remember if Ontario was like a province or like a city. Or you know what I mean? I didn't remember what it was.
It's a
well,
whole
I'm bad at geography because I'm a dumb American and all I know is my place.
So upset right now. You didn't know if you thought I need to throw something. You are one of the smartest people I know, and you just fucking said you thought Ontario was a city.
I wasn't sure.
I thought stop sections.
The only thing that I know about Canada is that more than 50% of you people live farther south than like Maine. And that's radically cool because you're all just crammed into this horrible little lump right there in the Great Lakes. And also, if you live in Detroit, Michigan, you go straight south, you end up in Canada before you end up in America. How wild is that?
Part of my province is south of Maine. Part of my province is south of Maine.
There you go. You go.
There's
I live
a lot
in a thing
south
called
of Maine.
And it's,
you don't know how north Maine is.
It's very north. It's shockingly north. I live in a thing called a state, and that state is called Oklahoma. And Oklahoma
does it have
has
subsections?
Bad education system. Yes, it has subsections, and those are the cities. You see, those are the cities. And no, it has counties. It's worse. There's the state, and then there's the county, and then there's the city, and it's all bad. System. It's real bad.
I live in the state of depression.
Nice.
I'm sorry, I thought Texas was a city.
Christopher Chamberlain says, Forrest, you truly missed your carring. The fact that you put an R instead of an L there sounds like I have a ring around my caw, and I don't appreciate that. Hey, why did the blind guy fall down the well? Because he couldn't see that well. Get it?
Fucking Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused. What about your cock ring?
Stop.
Right? You are one letter away from making this a whole other thing.
Next. Greg Markowski. OM not G. The two best guest hosts in the world. I'll have to watch tomorrow. JM session tonight. Thanks for filling in. Can't wait for the future me to watch it. Well, future Greg, I hope you're enjoying this section.
Future Greg, I'd like to apologize in advance for the shit that you've gone through right now.
Forrest
this whole thing just happened. Nobody deserves to watch this. Turn this shit off.
I feel like the producer of the show should like notice the comments and maybe like think about launching a new show with like these two as hosts periodically.
Why
That'd
is
be wild.
anybody here? This is foolishness. Okay, next, it's your turn.
Bring on the
and
next
if it's not
thing.
caw the line again.
If it's not caw this or that, how does an NB samurai end their enemies? They slash them. That is topical and beautiful, and I love that. That's fantastic.
I didn't get it until you read it out loud. I thought it was bad. I couldn't until you said it.
Really great.
Really enjoy. Don't ruin it with whatever you're about to do for us.
That. No, I'm putting that on my TikTok, and I'm not crediting Dylan Fuller because that's fantastic. Hey, Dylan, I have a question for you. What do ticks and the Eiffel Tower have in common? They're both parasites. Hit it!
Yep.
Biology humor.
Yeah, I get it. Yep. Okay, next. Next. All right. Kirstine Kennerson. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Here's what I don't understand. Why are box turtles not tortoises? It makes no sense to me. That is a Forrest question.
It's because of the way they walk, actually. The way that we actually classify turtles versus tortoises. A lot of times people say, oh, tortoises are strictly terrestrial, and tortoises are strictly terrestrial, and turtles sometimes go in the water and sometimes they don't. But like, that's kind of fuzzy and it's real weird. The way that we actually classify it is the way that they walk. So if you look very carefully at a turtle, look at their front feet and the way that they walk plantigrade. They put their whole foot flat on the thing, whatever they're walking on. And if you look at a tortoise, they walk digitigrade. They're like little ballerinas, and they get up on their tippy toes as they walk, and they don't like flat step down. And so that's actually the way that we would, or I guess the best way that we classify them. So the reason why box turtles are turtles, even though they are completely terrestrial, is because of the way that they cruise around on their feet instead of their tippy toes. How cool is that? Look at an African spur-thighed tortoise or a Galapagos tortoise or an Aldabra tortoise, these fucking massive things, and pay attention to the front feet, and they're up like this, and like the big squishy pad of their foot that you would expect them to put their massive body weight on never touches the ground. It's great.
That's pretty cool. That's cool information.
And then Coffee Mom says, what did the buffalo say when his kid went off to college? Bye, son.
I love. We're gonna exhaust your like. How's your repertoire? Like, are you gonna run out of like? You have to have another.
Am I gonna run out of jokes?
You have to. Yeah, or do you like just you have like a completely exhaustive dad joke like internal library that you can every time one of these comes up, you do it. Yeah.
How does the moon cut its hair? How does the moon cut his hair, Shannon?
I don't know.
Eclipse
Forrest.
it.
I feel like there's a window open. That's the only good explanation. There's a Google page. I gotta think.
Like, dude, like, is this how you spend your spare time? Like, have you been accumulating this for years? Like,
I've got two more up here that I've got ready.
Oh, this seems endless. Okay. All right, Dylan again. I'd love to know.
Yes.
Pardon me. Sorry, Dylan. I'd love to know if there are any studies on trauma and early man. I know one hypothesis is community built, strengthened bonds and made trauma manageable. I'm fascinated with how it affects human brains. Oh, you should read The Body Keeps the Score. That's a good book if you're fascinated with trauma and how it impacts your brain. Just to give a book recommendation, I don't have a shelf to draw it from, but The Body Knows the Score or Keeps the Score. I'll look it up because I've got it on Audible. That is a good book about trauma and its impact on the brain. But we'll let Forrest go.
I don't know of any studies off the top of my head. I know that it is a fact, a proven thing. I can't think of a study right now, but like I know that it's a thing that like when groups go through traumatic things together, it strengthens bonds. And so like that's something that we see, like, for example, when you're in the military, like you form, like they call each other brothers or sisters or what you form a very strong familial bond because you go through bullshit together. Look at that. Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
But like that is the thing that we can tell. I know I've used that in my own work because I tend to try to blend science lessons and life lessons together. So I try to talk about like some of the horrible things that were alive on Earth during the Pleistocene when our species evolved, and like what we had to overcome, look up freaking short-faced bears and Titanus walleri, the terror bird, and megatherians and all sorts of horrible shit. There's so much. I can't think of any studies off the top of my head at the moment, but like if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would recommend looking up books like Behave by Robert Sapolsky as well. This is a fantastic read. Yeah, this one's really cool, and it's another little thick boy. So like it's got a huge amount of information on like evolutionary neuroscience, endocrinology, neurobiology in general. This dude's a fucking rock star. He's awesome. And this covers a lot of like what we do and how we do it and why we do it like that as far as the brain's concerned. And I believe there are some things in here about that, if I remember correctly. But this is also a big book, and I haven't read it in a long time, so who knows? Maybe it's on there. But it's a good book.
I have that one. It's in my queue.
Jimmy only reads Captain Underpants. I need you to read the next two, Forrest.
Oh, one more book. Sorry, it's called The Upward Spiral by Alex Korb. I have the. But yeah, sorry, one sec. I've read this book twice. It's really, really good.
Excellent.
The Upward Spiral.
Okay. Everybody here with your 90 book recommendations. It's going to be a fun summer.
Forrest and I like to read.
I know one thing Forrest doesn't like to read, but I do need you to read this one before the next one.
Okay.
Reading's awesome because it's like a cheat code. This person spent their whole damn life learning a huge amount of information, and then they just wrote it down. I don't have to do all the work.
But read this.
You're cheating your way through the thing. You don't have to do the hard work in the game. You skip to the final boss. You learn it. It's amazing, y'all.
Right?
Don't ever let a day pass you without learning something new. Thank you for calling the line. My camera shit out at the perfect moment. Do you see that?
Amaze's gonna make you do it again. You had like such this beautiful, poignant point about learning.
I just need you to read it again so that this one would make a little more sense.
This is a murder of crows. Excellent. Hey, did you hear? There's a little person who was also a psychic. They made money as a psychic, and then they went to jail, but they broke out. And now the headline reads, "There's a small medium at large."
Well, we're canceled. Bye, everybody.
Forrest.
I'll give you a different one. How do you organize a party in space? You plan it.
I really should have been drinking something other than water. Is what I've just decided. But here we are. I'll make better decisions next time. Nepocrates. I'm awful at the names. I'm so sorry. Shannon, you helped me get through leaving religion, and Forrest, your explanations of science has helped me to understand things so much better and even correct my misunderstandings. Oh, that's so sweet, Rod. Thank you. Thank you, Nepocrates. That's so kind. Thank you for taking the time to let us know that.
Why can you never trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Oh, that's hard.
I still like Dylan's the best.
That's a hard one. Hey, let me ask you a question though. How do you catch a unique rabbit? Unique up on it. What is that?
Yeah, no, everybody got it.
That one was bad. That was a bad one.
Yeah.
Why is there a rabbit in it at all?
It has to be almost empty though. Like this can't be.
Well, I ask you a question.
Like this for the rest of your life,
Jimmy. Since you think that one is so bad, let me ask you a follow-up question, Jimmy. How do you catch a tame rabbit?
Let's skip this.
Go
ahead, Shannon.
You need up on it.
Oh, I would have gone with peculiar rabbit because it was weird to use unique twice. How do you catch a peculiar rabbit? Unique up on it. I feel like that would have worked better. I really do. Shannon, go ahead.
Thanks for the notes, Jimmy.
Oh, I got more notes, but I was going to wait till after the show.
No doubt in my mind. Okay. I have no puns to share. Just love, and love always wins. Thanks, Melody Kate. Love always wins.
Awesome.
I feel like the next one's probably going to be a pun, though.
Where do young trees go to learn? They go to elementary school. I love that. Hey, what has more letters than the whole alphabet? The post office.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. Next. Next one.
You have post offices in Canada? Is that a Canadian thing too?
Yeah, they're in some of the subsections of the city of Ontario. That's where that's the only post office is there. It's just south of Maine. Yeah. Yay, I want I want my partner to look at and treat me like Forrest does so to books. That's fair, actually. You are both amazing individuals. I look forward to future shows with you together, hopefully covering more bio-neuropsych topics. People like us, love Forrest. That. This is quality content. So
Alexander says there are 10 types of people in the world: those who understand binary and those who don't. That's excellent.
That was good. That one's good. I like that one.
Paul. Two cannibals are eating a clown. One turns to the other and says, "Does this taste funny to you?"
Fucking. Past my bedtime. I stayed up for this.
Still better than when
I always learn something when I'm with Forrest.
Still better than when Forrest thought we needed
enlightening.
It's still better than when Forrest thought we needed like 5 examples of how you would murder a baby, but he thought something else would be clipped later in the show.
5 examples. That was it. He very elaborately murdered that baby. That is fair.
That was a lot.
So from Paul,
I wanted to make sure to paint the image.
Yes. Well, that's a good rhetorical device, though, because you're making sure that you really hammer the point home by creating the visual. I'm on your team, Forrest. Right? I'm on your team.
Precisely. You get it.
I get it. All right. So this is from Paul, who asked me beforehand to ask you this question and apparently had no patience and decided to super chat it anyway, probably so that he could pin you in public. I'm creating a video exposing yet another reason why Jason Lyle is wrong. If anyone, not Shannon, on the panel would like to help, let me know. Paul's asking to do a collaboration with you, is what
I'm down. I don't know who that person is, but like, yeah, if you want to get in touch.
That's my boyfriend who has a channel called Apologia with about 100,000 subscribers that you should probably check out. He's pretty cool. He's in the other room right now.
Paul. I have not had the pleasure of meeting him, but I also don't know. I was saying I don't know who Jason Lyle is. I don't know who that person is.
I thought you did a response.
If this is the thing you guys want to work on, I'm down with it. Yeah, let's do it. I'm
cool.
Swamped is all bullshit.
Can I tell you how pleased I am right now that he is being recognized as Shannon Q's boyfriend? Because 9 times out of 10, because his channel is so large, people are like, "Oh my God, you're probably his girlfriend." I'm like, I do things. So this is the best day. This is the best part of my day. All right, your turn.
I cannot camembert it anymore. She's Tim Minchin. Tim or Brian Boo, or whoever you are, you jerk. Hey, why can't eggs tell each other jokes like this? Because they'd crack each other up.
They crack up. I got that one. I got one.
There you go. Proud of you.
Nailed it. I'm basically a
all right. Well, then,
now.
Since you figured that one out, why can't a bicycle stand up? Why can't a bicycle stand up? It's just too tired.
Oh, fucking Jesus. Next. Okay, good. It's already. FYI, the most southern part of Canada is more south than the most northern part of California.
Yep. Yeah. I learned that with like Maine, but like I'm sure California, works the same way. The old bitch is curved and whatnot. You know what I mean?
The whole bitch. The whole bitch is curved.
The whole bitch, America. You know what I mean?
That bitch got
curves.
My friend keeps trying to annoy me by using bird puns, but I soon realized that 2 can play at that game. Love that one. That's fantastic. I love reading, and we talked a lot about books. I especially like books about mazes because I can really get lost in them.
I don't know how this doesn't have an end.
You are all witnessing Forrest's last day on YouTube. Not even just this channel. He's banned. I'm calling Susan.
I like reading Charlotte Bronte too because she's a breath of fresh air.
Oh, because Jane Eyre. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So John Lee Master, great show. Love the guest host combo. Much love. A fellow Okie. Is that what people from Oklahoma? It's Okie?
Yeah, you're an Okie if you're from Oklahoma. That's an old term that I love. It's cool because like I never realize how country we are in Oklahoma because we're like right there on the cusp between Southern and Midwestern. But like I remember, you know, I was working at an animal sanctuary at one point and like this woman came in with these two kids that were like scared of everything. And she was like, their parents moved them up to New York and now they're afraid of worms and stuff. I need you to show them as many cockroaches and snakes as you can to make them country again. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot. Yeah, that's actually what this is. Particle physics gives me a hadron.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Oh. All right, very niche then. Since we're talking very niche words, in biology, one of the way that we classify things, the taxonomic order that covers all snakes and lizards is called Squamata. So you need to know that going into this joke. But what do you say to a sad lizard, Shannon?
I don't know.
What Squamata you? Get it?
You know, the jokes I enjoy most are the ones that need like a preamble so that we can understand what's about to happen.
If you were in a herpetology class, you'd be laughing. I have to help, you know?
One moment, I'll give you the key to the joke I'm about to tell. All right, so the cues. Sexethiophene is an electrifyingly attractive molecule. Is that supposed to be one of the
jokes? We're only down to puns, so that's why you got one too.
Oh, okay.
Oh shit! Yeah, no, I don't.
Sexethiophene is an electrifyingly attractive. Is that supposed to be because
I'm too stupid for that one?
See that? I'm not the one. I'm not the one.
Yeah. Sexethiophene.
That just tells me I could just sit back and watch Forrest read puns for the rest of the show.
Oh, this is the last one.
Shannon,
here's all for you.
The best combo, hell yeah. Greetings from Brazil. You guys helped me a lot with your good advice. I used to be addicted to soap, you know, but I'm clean now. Oh, that's excellent.
Oh, that's pretty
good. Hey, what do you get when you cross a bad pun with a rhetorical question?
I don't know. I don't want to know. What? Yeah, I do want to know. What?
It just happened.
I fucking hate you right now.
All right, Forrest. So there's a specific order to the way Matt ends this show. I know you probably aren't familiar with it, so we will do that now.
Yeah,
first thing you'll do is thank your co-host.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for being such an amazing co-host. You've been fantastic. And thank you, Jimmy, for supplying
that comes later. There's a certain order. We got co-host first. Okay. Next would be call screener.
Thank you, Shannon, for being such a wonderful co-host.
Next would be call screener, which was Jen Got Cookies. If you want to thank Jen Got Cookies.
Thank you, Jen Got Cookies, for being such an amazing call screener. You did a wonderful job. We had calls, and they were screened, and that was your whole job, and I appreciate it.
Then you want to thank the mods, which were Mika, Stephanie, and Dylan tonight.
Mika, Stephanie, and Dylan tonight. Thank you so much for being such amazing mods and moderating the things that needed to be moderated and modulating the things that needed to be modulized. Thank you for being here. You are beautiful people with kind eyes and well-shaped ears.
This is where Matt might thank me, but you absolutely do not have to do that.
I'm not.
Jimmy, thank you so much for providing us both with a platform and also with the puns and an abundance of fieldies.
Yeah. And then he would probably end it by just sort of saying this.
This is what I'm talking about. You put the fieldies all around it. And like,
go ahead and if you could just end the show there, buddy, if you could just end the show by reading that.
You put... It's just...
Go ahead and just end the show.
I don't want you put too much fieldies on the screen.
Let's go ahead and just get that show wrapped up. End the show.
I'll do it with you. We can do it together on 3. I'll do it with you. We can do it together. I'll hold your hand.
Always with the fieldies in this guy.
Just ends the show there, bud.
Ready? On 3. We can do it, Forrest. You can do it. You ready? On 3. 1.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, wait. We've got 2 new super chats. Wait. We got 2 new ones.
Yes.
Okay,
are you going to put fieldies on these ones too?
Maybe.
Yep, you put fieldies all around them. So awesome content. Thanks from Andrea Vinson. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being here. I'm sorry that Jimmy smeared fieldies all over.
I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying when you're saying smeared fieldies?
I don't understand what that means.
What are you talking about?
Fieldies nuts, bitch! Oh. Yeah! Fuck you, Jimmy Snow! Making me say that dumb shit? Fuck you!
Oh my God, we both really fell for it, didn't we? Oh my God, I feel like such up dog right now.
The line. I'm Forrest Valkai. She's Shannon Q. Good night.
We got more. No, there's another one. So there.
God damn it!
God.
But I do feel like up dog now.
Right? You feel like up dog? Fuck off.
Who's gonna read this one?
And now I'm jealous of Pelagia. At me.
And then
So you shouldn't be. I'm a nightmare.
And then here you go. If you want to just go ahead and wrap up the show, go ahead and just end the show there. Go ahead and
Thank you so much for calling the line, everybody. Have an awesome rest of your night, and never stop learning. And you know what? Like we say with our books, be true to yourself.
Fucking God. End it.
Thanks for calling the line.